Hello everyone, it's Rob from Access here at E3. Today I am joined by none other than Shinji Mikami, who's director of The Evil Within. Now, thank you so much for talking to us. The Evil Within, the horror in it seems to be a little bit different to the horror in your previous games. What did you want to do with the horror in The Evil Within that was different to what you've done before?
今回はサバイバルホラーの
I want to go back to the original survival horror. It's a classical design, so that's what I'm trying to do this time.
っていうのを目指して作ってます。
You say classical survival horror. What does that mean to you? What do you think, if you had, say, 3 golden rules of what a survival horror game has to be effective? Because we've seen lots of different examples in the genre. What do you think is that key ingredient that really makes a survival horror game special and also makes it feel scary?
まず一つ雰囲気、敵が怖いこと。
Firstly, it's the atmosphere and the enemies that are scary. Secondly, you can fight and defeat them, so you get a sense of achievement. It's scary, but you can fight back and enjoy fighting back. That's a survival horror.
戦って倒すこともできるっていうのがサバイバルホラーの定義。
Obviously, the title of the game is The Evil Within, and a certain element to the horror seems to be psychological. Like, I know there's been lots of horror. You mentioned that the enemies provide the horror, fighting against the enemies provides the horror, but there also seems to be quite a psychological aspect in The Evil Within. What were you trying to achieve with that?
基本的に現実と現実でない世界っていうと
There is a real world and a non-real world. Players are confused whether it's real or not real. In that kind of situation, you get scared. That's what I'm trying to achieve this time.
もうちょっと怖がってほしいっていう。
And what have you learned over your career of making survival horror games? What have you learned from games like Resident Evil? And how do you think the genre has changed from when you were making those original Resident Evil games to what we're seeing on PlayStation 4 on next-gen consoles now? How do you think the genre has changed, and what are you bringing from the past into the future of the genre now?
最初はみんなサバイバルホラーっていうジャンルからスタートするんだけど
Originally, it was all about survival horror, but as they made sequels, it went more towards action games. This time, I want to create a real survival horror for players who love that genre.
遊んでもらおうと思って作ってます。
Would it be fair to say that the choice of weaponry is quite crucial as well to when you're making a survival horror game? For instance, there's the crossbow seems to play quite a prominent role in The Evil Within. Why did you choose that type of weaponry for the game?
基本この世界っていう
One feature of The Evil Within is that you can use traps. You use traps against enemies. It's such a primitive weapon or mechanism. Likewise, the crossbow is a very primitive weapon, so that's why I chose it.
そのアガニーっていうトラップが
You talked about atmosphere as well, and I guess kind of like pacing in the narrative also contributes to how that atmosphere works. Why is pacing so important, to creating that atmosphere that you really want to get across in the game?
今回スピーディーにしちゃうとよりその
The pacing of the game is intentionally slow. If you make it a faster paced game, players will not have time to feel the fear. To give them enough time to let the fear sink in, the pacing of the game will be slow.
あえてペースは今回はゆっくりにしてます。
Sometimes we see quite a lot of games nowadays that don't allow you to have weaponry at all. They don't allow you to fight against enemies, and like your only options are to run or to hide. Why, for you personally, is it important to be able to actually beat the enemies, to be able to actually battle against them and to fight back rather than just running away and hiding all the time?
単に怖いっていうゲームを10時間以上も遊ぶと
If you play 10 hours of running away or hiding, you get tired of it. You can run, you can hide, but you can also fight back. For me, if you can fight and defeat your enemies, it's far more entertaining. I like that kind of game far more than just running and hiding.
ゲームとしてっていう僕個人がすごく楽しめる内容になっている。
What can you tell us about the lead character in The Evil Within, and what do you think is what is important for you in your lead character? What kind of traits do you look for them to have?
戦えそうだけどそんな強く
He can fight, but he's not strong. He's not a wrestler, he's not Rambo. He's a normal person, but at least he knows how to handle guns. That's the kind of character I wanted to make.
The game's looking absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much for your time, Mikami-san. That is The Evil Within, coming to PS4. If you want to see more videos from E3, you've got absolutely loads on our channel, so make sure you subscribe to make sure you don't miss out on them.